All right, so you should have gotten a handout. Now, that's got a couple things already on there. Now, a lot of it you're going to have to fill in. I tried to leave it just kind of where you could just do it as you want. So there's already some stuff on there. But as we do it, it's no secret. It's difficult raising kids, and it's good that we want to raise our kids well. And I've heard it growing up, especially as a millennial, that millennials are like the lost generation. And now we say the same thing about Gen Z. Like they're not, it's not the same as it was before a generation ago or 2 generations ago. And there's like no hope. I got a lot of that kind of message growing up, and I hear a lot of it about Gen Z right now. But if we rewind about 2,400 years and we see what Socrates said, if we can go to that next slide, Aaron. I can read it. Speaking of technology, right? Technological difficulties. All right, so Socrates said this: the children, they now love luxury. They have bad manners, contempt for authority. They show disrespect for elders and love chatter in place of exercise. Children are now tyrants, and you've probably thought that about your own kids or grandkids, right? Not the servants of their households. They no longer rise when elders enter the room. They contradict their parents, chatter before company, gobble up dainties at the table, cross their legs, and tyrannize their teachers. Well, that's 2,400 years ago. Socrates said that about the younger generation. The younger generation, they're just kids. It's not like they're a lost generation and there's no hope. And so what we can do as parents, grandparents, guardians, aunts, uncles, those in their life, we can come alongside them and guide them and train them up to be the kids and people, the adults that we want them to be. There we go. Just a moment too late. Yeah. So we live in a unique time in history where kind of every other generation, if a kid didn't know how to share, if a kid was misbehaving in a certain way, we could go to the previous generation and ask them, how did you guys handle this? I mean, that's what I'm doing. Well, I've got a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. And the 4-year-old, obviously is learning how to share, learning how to do so many of these things. So I go to my parents and I ask. I go to Maddie's parents and I ask. I go to other people who have raised kids already and I ask, how have you handled these things? But this is really the first generation where technology has been in the life of children from young age all the way up. And so we can't go to the older generations and ask, how did you do this? And so it's kind of like we're left looking around, who do we ask, like a dog chasing their tail over and over, and we can't figure out what do we do. And so we want to be able to help one another out here, and that's what we want to do today is equip you guys. And we'll do this maybe once a year or more often as we go from here. But here's the question I'm kind of scared of as my daughter's 4 years old, and she's starting to use more and more technology. It's, am I handing my child a device that will lead them astray? Now, as we handed out that survey back on Sunday, one of the first question we asked was, do you feel prepared or equipped to adequately handle technology in the life of your child? And we just asked yes or no. And the majority of people said no. A few people said yes. And now I think there's kind of a pendulum swing here as we handle a lot of these things. And maybe you're not worried at all. And I will say you should be. And maybe you're completely terrified. And I will say you don't have to be. And maybe you're somewhere in the middle where you're curious or you're unsettled. And I think that's a healthy place to be. There's a lot of easy ways where we can get a hold on this before it gets a hold on our kids. And one of the things a few years ago that caught my eye on all of it was Steve Jobs, right after he had released the first iPad, a reporter was interviewing him about it. And at the end of the interview, just kind of an off-the-cuff question, the reporter asked, hey, do your kids like the iPad? Steve Jobs, I mean, this is a huge quote when it comes to this. He said, well, they haven't used the iPad. We limit how much tech our kids use at home. The man who created all of this, who's putting the iPad in your kids' hands, wouldn't even let his children use it yet, after it had been released. Another one, an Apple VP of design, said something similar. We set strict rules about screen time. This is before the whole screen time app came out on iPhones, years before that. And there's so many more stories, people from Google, people from Apple, people from other tech industries in Silicon Valley where they do the same thing. Another thing that just baffles me is that many of the Apple and Google, Yahoo, all of those execs, many of them will send their kids to a school out there in Silicon Valley. It's called a Waldorf school, and there's a lot scattered across the nation, but this Waldorf school doesn't allow any technology in the classroom. None. And they actually discourage technology at home. So these Apple VPs, Google VPs, all of these people realize the weight of what they're putting in kids' hands, and they don't want their kids to have any part of it while they're in the classroom. Why? Because they want to teach the kids how to think, while technology often teaches them what to think. That's why they do so much of this. I think that's noteworthy. The people who are creating all the technology send their kids purposely to a school that doesn't have it. And I want to be clear, I'm not anti-tech. I do Walmart pickup all the time. I mean, who wants to go and walk through Walmart anymore and spend 2 hours getting all your groceries? When we were in Pea Ridge, they were piloting a drone delivery program, which we got in the beta testing for. And so if I wanted a Dr. Pepper or something, I could hop on my phone on the app that they gave me and just pay like $1.50. And then about an hour or 2 hours later, this plane would fly over our house, and it would drop this box with a parachute and drop a Dr. Pepper in our backyard. Absolutely for free. Delivery, right? It was amazing. So I'm pro technology. Amazon delivery, DoorDash, Grubhub. I mean, social media, you can keep up with your friends from college or high school. I'm speaking from an iPad, okay? I use Bible software for a lot of my Bible study. I've done a degree online, and I'm doing another degree online right now. So I am full pro technology. But tech needs to be in its proper place. And if we go to Genesis 1:28, God says, and this is the first blessing in all of Scripture, it says, and God blessed them, Adam and Eve, humankind, all humanity, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And here's kind of the key here, and subdue it. Subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. And you see from there kind of this progression. I'm not going to go into this, but in Genesis 4, you see them starting to harvest things in the earth, and all of a sudden tools come along, tents come along. You see a progression of technology. And so part of subduing the earth is harvesting minerals and raw materials within the earth and developing that technology. We're subduing the earth, and that's supposed to be a blessing, not a curse. And we'll wrap around to that at the end. So here's the pendulum swing. If we can go to the next one. As families, as you have kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, kids in your life, we can go on one end and we can try to be tech-free, where we're like, we want to get rid of all technology, kind of an Amish kind of lifestyle, where we're so scared of it, we're going to remove all of it. But what happens when our kids turn 18, 19, 20 years old and they get out of the house and they've never handled this before, and all of a sudden they don't know what to do, and it just takes over their lives? On the other side, you can be the tech-consumed family, where you're the family sitting around the dinner table and everybody's got their phone out, which, let's be honest, that's a lot of us at times. We've been there. We've done that. But in the middle, we can be a tech-wise family. That should be the goal, not only for us as people to be tech-wise individually, but for our families to be tech-wise. And we want to be able to teach our kids to do that. Ephesians 6:4, it says, fathers, and we can say all parents there, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. And every generation has had its own particulars on how to navigate that command. But here in the 21st century, part of that has to answer the question, if we want to lead our kids to love Jesus well, what is technology's proper place in the life of a believer? And that starts at a young age today. What do we do as parents? What do we do as these people raising these kids? Because something's going to disciple your children. Either you, the church, or the world. Something is discipling your children. And that's why we're going to talk about the apps. We're going to talk about YouTube. We're going to talk about TV a little bit and see all of these things. Okay? And I think parents can make two dangerous mistakes here. And I've kind of looked inward and reflected to kind of think of these things. We can outsource to the church alone and expect the church to raise our kids for us. But I'll tell you something. Parents get about 3,000 hours a year. That's kind of average, some more, some less, with their kids. The church may get up to 100. So you can't outsource it to the church alone. Yes, we're here as partners to guide that, but we can't do it all. And then two is we outsource it to the world alone. Go watch Finding Nemo, Finding Dory. Go watch some Elmo. Like Lucy, our 1-year-old, first thing she does in the morning, we get her out of her crib, we change her, we put her in her high chair, and we give her a banana, we give her some milk, and she looks at us and goes, Melmo? It's how she says Elmo, asking for Sesame Street, right? But that's the first thing she wants.